Welcome back to another episode of The Founder, a show that features entrepreneurs and their early stories of ingenuity, struggle, and perseverance to get their companies off the ground. We do our best to capture the uncensored, uncovered look behind the curtain into what founders really face when getting started. I'm your host, Kallaway. Our founder guest on today's episode is incredibly talented, having grown up and studied mechanical engineering in the Netherlands, but winding up in New York pursuing a career as a fashion model. After getting the opportunity to travel the world on the back of a successful modeling career, he ended up returning to New York, eager to start his next venture. Throughout his travels and early career, he always felt a deep calling to help people and wanted to find a way to make the world a better place. After starting to experience some early symptoms of hair loss himself and realizing he was genetically at risk given his family history, he decided to take matters into his own hands. After spending some time using pharmaceutical solutions for hair loss and experiencing the significant side effects, he decided he'd had enough. That's where he got the idea to start Nutrafol. Today at Nutrafol, this founder and his team are blazing the trail for hair wellness, producing superior products and industry-leading science to drive transformative results. Nutrafol is unique in that they take a holistic approach to tackling hair loss and pioneered the hair wellness category by focusing on the root causes for hair growth, things like stress, metabolism, and hormones. About a year ago, I personally noticed that my hair started thinning and was looking for solutions. After trying some basic gummy vitamins without any significant results and afraid to try the unhealthy pharmaceuticals for fear of those negative side effects, I was fortunate to find Nutrafol, which was packed with nutraceuticals, giving me access to clinical strength, medical grade ingredients that are naturally occurring and good for my body. I've been on that product for about 9 months now and couldn't be happier with the results. To celebrate that effectiveness and as a special offer for our listeners, we've teamed up with this founder to give you 20% off your subscription. Just use code FOUNDER at checkout to take advantage. This is an inspiring interview that emphasizes the future of holistic wellness, a topic I'm personally extremely bullish on. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Now introducing the founder of Nutrafol, Giorgos Tsetis. Let's get it. Giorgos, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kyle. Nice to meet you, and excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me as well. So before we dive into kind of the origin story for Nutrafol and how everything came to be, what I like to do is start the show off with just an anchor point. So can you provide a little snapshot into kind of what the mission and vision is for the company, what products you sell today for people that aren't familiar, and any other kind of KPIs that you use to measure growth today?
Yeah, absolutely. I can start by explaining who we are, right? As Nutrafol, and in short, we are a hair wellness brand. So we apply a holistic, it's a whole body approach to treat thinning hair and hair loss for men and for women. And so we always have believed in a wellness approach, meaning really treating the root causes versus the symptoms with supplements that are clinically shown to be very effective for hair growth, right? So we, as Nutrafol, we have pioneered this category, and we are the creator of the hair wellness category, so to say. Our goal was always to create very effective and healthy solutions to consumers that suffer from these hair issues. So going back to your first question about what the mission always was how do we continue to add value to people's lives, right? And we do it through hair. A lot of people are concerned, right? There's millions and millions of people that are experiencing hair thinning and hair loss. And it's a problem for many of us. I was suffering myself from hair loss. I'm genetically predisposed. My father lost his hair in his early 20s. My grandfathers were all bald and balding. My mother was suffering from thinning hair at an early age. So there was enough evidence that I would go through the same downward spiral. And it was always our mission to create or provide solutions that are very healthy and effective at the same time, because that was something that was pretty hard to find, right? Some of the basic vitamins and minerals that are out there for hair were never effective enough, and some of the pharmaceutical drugs that are out there for men and for women are associated with some severe side effects. And I was myself on one of one of these pharmaceutical drugs and suffered from these side effects, and that was my motivation to really get into this space. I have an engineering background. I was never imagining myself to get involved with hair, but we realized that we're onto something that was unique, a new approach, and we decided to continue to add value to people's lives because it is a big concern to many of us, and unfortunately, it's a growing concern. It's not something that is stopping. There's just the women's audience alone. It's talking about 40 million women that suffer from hair loss in one stage in their lives, and unfortunately, not no good solutions out there, and it's still taboo even to talk about this. So our mission was to add value and to continue to change this conversation, right? So even this conversation about this topic is valuable because it raises awareness, it hopefully is going to provide solutions and hope to millions out there.
Yeah, I'm pumped to get into it. And I agree. I think it's a massive problem it is a little taboo the way people talk about hair thinning, and it's almost seen as a negative, and just an untreatable problem for a lot of people. So I'm pumped to get into that. I'd love to double click on your background. You alluded to it. You have an engineering background. Can you take us through kind of, through your early life, going to university, and then what were you working on pre Nutrafol? Was this your first foray out of college, or did you have other jobs before that?
Yeah, no, I had some other gigs before that. So I studied in Holland. So I'm half Dutch, half Greek, and I went to a Dutch university. So I have a technical background, I have a mechanical engineering background, and then when I came to New York, I started a structural engineering career. So it's something that's very different. And during my engineering time, I was fortunate enough to travel the world as a fashion model. These were the good old times, I was always very concerned with keeping my hair, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
because it was a part of my income. uh, so um, I was always doing that in parallel. Studying engineering, really educating myself on how to solve problems, and at the same time, really exploring the world and connecting with people to further collaborate on projects that can change the world. It was always my goal to make a difference for whatever reason. I always felt very responsible to help people because pretty fortunate. I think we're all very fortunate, right? And I always felt a deep sense of responsibility to make this world a better place. So always, I was always coming from a place of, okay, what are problems out there that I think I can add value and help solve. So my engineering background was always very valuable because it teaches you how to think, right? It teaches you how to think and identifying a problem and trying to find a way to structurally resolve that problem. So, and I consider that one of my strengths. And that gave me enough knowledge to tackle this concern. And I can get into that in a second. But, when I came to New York actually as a fashion model 10 years ago, um, I, um, I decided to stay in New York and start a new career. So what I did was one of my engineering projects at the university was actually in Dubai. I hope I'm not going to bore you with this, but
No, it's
it was
helpful.
very technical. I was working on some of the islands, the artificial islands there. So some of the technologies that we use. It was a Dutch dredging company that would use a specific method to create these artificial islands in the front of the Dubai coast. I was doing some very interesting projects there from an engineering perspective. And when I came to New York, because I started travel the world, and I was fortunate and successful with my modeling career, I decided that it was time to establish myself and to start a business, right? To really explore further my entrepreneurial skills and my desire to make this world a better place. So, and I believe that um, you know to start a business, right? It's always you have to be very passionate, and it somehow has to come to you. If you try to intentionally start a business,
Yeah, it
it's
never works.
sometimes a little harder because it needs to be you, right? It needs to fit you. And I tried to start so many businesses in the past, and it was like it just didn't really go through, or there was not enough passion behind it, right? So I continued with my on my engineering path and my modeling path when I was in New York. I started eventually a engineering company, a consulting company, and really focusing on structural engineering in New York, which was incredibly interesting. But I always was in service of someone, right? You're providing services, and I was never super attracted to that business, even though it was a great field to be involved with. But it wasn't. I wasn't necessarily changing the world or adding great value. But it was an amazing, amazing experience to get to know amazing people in New York, get familiar with the city, and really further develop some of my leadership skills. So to keep a long story short, it was faith that basically brought myself and my business partner, Roland, brought together. And we started to talk about this concern that I had with hair loss and some of the side effects that I was experiencing being on these pharmaceutical drugs that were absolutely devastating. I don't know if you're familiar with the side effects of propecia and
Yeah, a
some
lot of
of these
sexual
others.
dysfunction, like loss of libido
Sexual
type stuff.
dysfunctions, exactly, and loss in libido. So I experienced all of the above, which is
Not good.
absolutely not good as a young man to suffer. And I was just incredibly puzzled with some of the answers that I was getting from doctors because I was just very stuck. I hit a wall because every single time I stopped using these pharmaceuticals, my hair started to fall out, right? But at the same time, I was suffering tremendously from these side effects. So that was not a good position to be in. And while I was doing the engineering and while I was doing the modeling, it was incredible. But the I felt that I had to solve a problem for myself because I definitely started to jeopardize my health, right? And health was very always my health and my wellness were incredibly important to me. So I connected with Roland Prato, who's now my business partner, but he was always a dear friend, and he's a science biohacker. And I shared this very uh, embarrassing slash taboo issue, right? It's like, man, I'm suffering from these side effects. There's no alternative. I've tried everything under the sun, tried the vitamins and minerals out there. I tried some of these topical solutions out there. It just wasn't working. And every single time I go to a doctor, they're just giving me basic answers. There's only two FDA-approved drugs out there, which is minoxidil and propecia, and there hasn't been any innovation since 1988, right? And that's pretty disturbing considering the the level of this problem, right? So we started to communicate. We started to communicate and connect really as two friends on how to do this better. And he's in his mid 50s and he suffered from RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and he very successfully treated that by applying a very interesting holistic approach, targeting some of these underlying causes, inflammation, with nutraceutical, botanical, clinically proven ingredients. And one of the side effects that he was experiencing was some increase in hair growth. So that sparked the whole. So it was all faith, right? We came together, and he was battling with RA, which is considered a disease, right? And I was suffering from sexual dysfunction and being completely lost to really trying to find a healthy and an effective solution. And that what just started a conversation. And for one thing came the other. We became a research project, right? So that's where I applied my engineering skills, which was simply just identifying the problem and really finding ways to tackle it. But especially with his scientific knowledge, we're very quickly able to at least identify some pathways that, from a biological and scientific standpoint, that were not being addressed by either some of the basic solutions out there or even by some of these pharmaceutical drugs. And that just it gave us a little bit of hope. It gave us hope. We were like, how does inflammation disrupt the hair growth cycle, right? How does inflammation play a role with stress, right? We all know anecdotally that stress is causing hair loss, right? So why is nobody addressing cortisol, which is at the root of stress? None of the drugs are doing that. None of these basic vitamins and minerals are doing that. Are there any botanical nutraceutical ingredients that are able to do that? Right? This is 5, 6 years ago, and so we started to connect some dots. And how does inflammation play a role with cortisol, and how does that impact your genetics, right? Epigenetics is a big topic, and there are ways to influence genetics, right? By taking potent nutraceutical ingredients that are able to rebalance some of these hormones. So these were all just basic questions, right? And just out of curiosity and out of just being super obsessed to find a solution, we just made some great headway. And we eventually, of course, we connected with further doctors and started to write a scientific white paper around this new approach and new philosophy around hair wellness, addressing the root causes for the symptoms. What are these underlying causes? Can we effectively address them with specific ingredients? Is there efficacy in these ingredients? Right? And we identified a whole new mechanism of action, and this is now researched, 5 years ago, that is published and recognized by really key opinion leaders in the physician space, dermatologists and plastic surgeons that are the hair experts. So we're incredibly proud of the research and the time that we have invested in clinical trials to really prove the world that there is a different way to address this issue. There's a very healthy and an effective way as long as you target the underlying causes that are specific to you, right? And doing that with botanical natural ingredients that have true efficacy, because there's just too many supplements out there that are just simply not working because the phytonutrients are not active. And unfortunately, the whole industry there's so much distrust in the industry for good reasons, because the way you can manufacture supplements in this country is just incredibly simple. It's not even regulated by the FDA. So it's not about putting a bunch of ingredients together and then hoping for the best, because that's exactly what's happening out there, and making false claims. So we wanted to prove to the world that we can do this better, setting the bar higher, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. So I've been buying and taking the Nutrafol product for like 9 months or so, and actually seeing the positive results. And I was going to double click into what you just said, which is I feel like there's a lot of people out there that don't, especially when it comes to supplement formulations, A, they don't understand what is in it. And then B, even if they were to look at the back of it and look at the ingredient list, a lot of these ingredients, people don't know what they do for their body. So
That's
can
right.
you take a second and break down what some of these differentiating ingredients are that you have in Nutrafol? Some more basic like saw palmetto, things that you can take individually, but you have other things in there as well that you kind of discovered and drove that paper. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we started with the mechanism of action. What are these factors that have to be addressed? And our theory was there's multiple factors that lead to hair loss and thinning. It's not just genetics. There's now evidence that stress can trigger genetic predisposition, right? Because hair follicles have cortisol receptors, which is super interesting. So now there's a direct correlation between stress and genetics. That's why you see with young men and even women, right? It's like the moment you get stressed, sometimes your genetic predisposition can be accelerated. So the theory 5, 6 years ago was the problem is multifactorial. It's not just one factor. It's not just DHT. It's not just nutritional deficiencies. There's stress, there's inflammation, there's oxidative stress, and there's free radicals. All of these factors are playing a role and are just correlated with each other. So our approach was to address all these factors at the same time with nutraceuticals. So are you familiar with nutraceuticals and the definition of the word?
Yeah, I am a little bit, but I think some of our listeners might not be at all. So breaking it down from the basics would be helpful.
Because I think that's important. Like, so you've got herbs, right? You've got botanicals, right? And in the Eastern world, all these herbs and botanicals have been used for decades to heal, right, the body. But there is in the past 5 to 10 years, the nutraceutical space has really evolved because science is important, and having proof that these ingredients have these healing powers is incredibly important. So the nutraceutical industry has evolved, and so nutraceutical is defined by these are natural ingredients, botanicals, but we use pharmaceutical grade standards to actually manufacture them. So we can extract specific phytonutrients from these herbals, from these botanicals that have been identified as potent and as effective to treat some of these underlying causes. So these nutraceuticals are incredibly potent, extracted in a different way, and many of them are also made more bioavailable. And bioavailability is essentially the body has to be able to absorb these ingredients, because you can take whatever you need or whatever you want, but if it doesn't get absorbed in the right area, then it goes to waste, right? So how do we think about these ingredients and making sure that they're being absorbed properly? So there's again, in the biotech industry, that has evolved a lot as well, because by extracting them in a different way, by optimizing them to make them more bioavailable, it allows that ingredient to be truly effective. And then the next step is, of course, clinical trials. It's like now you've got an ingredient, you've got a phytonutrient, right, that is better extracted, it's better absorbable, but does it actually work, right? So we leveraged in the beginning, because in the beginning we didn't have the funding that we have now. But in the beginning, we leveraged a lot of these clinical trials from these individual ingredient partners that invested already millions of dollars in making sure that these ingredients are truly effective if you take them in. These nutraceuticals in our formulation are basically clinically proven to address some of these underlying factors. We use a patented ashwagandha, which is one of the best ashwagandhas actually out there, that is clinically proven to address cortisol within the body in a matter of 2 months. So it decreases. It's an adaptogen, right? So when cortisol is up, it lowers it. If cortisol is down, it elevates. Which it's these plants are incredibly intelligent, and it's fascinating to if you look at that data on how the body is responding with the intake of these type of ingredients. So these are just some key examples. So we have the Synergen complex. That's, by the way, we just received a patent. It took us years to receive this
That's
patent.
awesome. Yeah,
It's
congrats on that.
incredible. We're fighting to receive this patent because it's unique to get a patent in this industry, because it's hard to patent. You have to prove innovation, right? And as I just mentioned, a lot of these supplements companies are just grabbing existing ingredients and putting them together. So there's no innovation there. But we were able to prove synergy between these ingredients, which 1 plus 1 is 3 or 4 or 5, right? So it's that unique combination of these nutraceuticals that leads to us being able to very effectively basically jumpstart the hair growth cycle. And we've proven that in clinical trials, right? So we have not just individual clinical trials on the ingredients, but we have invested millions of dollars to prove to the world that this is possible, and also the medical industry, right? That that combination of these ingredients and these nutraceuticals are able to improve hair growth in men and for women.
And I think so, one piece of the puzzle is, and it's a big piece, is making sure the product is as high quality grade and effective as possible. The other piece, which I'd love to get into, is then how do you go out and acquire customers, retain them, minimize churn, and all of that. So I love getting into customer acquisition and marketing because I think
Sure.
that's such a big piece. And with direct to consumer brands today, there's a lot of things that different people are trying that have shown effectiveness. So the first one I want to get into is, when it comes to customer acquisition, I know you guys have seen huge growth recently. What would it take to go 10x in terms of the people that are buying Nutrafol today? Is it an awareness or education issue? Like simply there just hasn't been enough time or enough people that have come around to this hair wellness concept. How do you think about that today to go to 10x tomorrow?
Well, that's a great question. Um, we we have scaled the business over the past 3 years exponentially. So, as you know, to create 10x
Yeah, it's
at
tough.
this scale will be quite amazing. It's easy to do that when you just start, but at this scale, it's a great goal to have. But yeah, 10x. In order to do that, what's super important is, first of all, you need focus, right? You need to own a category. You need to be a thought leader in the industry in order to attract and get the trust of that amount of customers, right? Um, the audience is out there because it is a problem for millions, and it continues to be a problem, right? So in order um, to really be successful as a business, in my opinion, you need, first of all, focus and thought leadership, and knowing the problem, right? You see a lot of brands diversifying, doing a lot of other things,
Yeah, spreading pretty thin.
exactly, tapping into different categories. It's like my philosophy was always like, let's just own hair. Let's do what we know best. We don't even want to get too much into topical solutions. We understand hair wellness and the importance of addressing whole body health to affect hair in a positive way. And we understand nutraceuticals. So our focus was always hair. So focus, right? Expertise, doubling down on knowledge, right? And science, and then of course the branding around that. Right? This is an emotional purchase, right? So leading with science, we have seen that's not always the best approach, right, to attract a larger customer base. Leading with more emotion, right, and more authentic conversation like we have now, right? And addressing why we do what we do versus what and how we do it is important, right? And these are Simon Sinek's words, as you know.
The
But
power of why.
yeah, the power of why. And so it's really that focused thought leadership, and how do you build a brand around that people feel attracted to, right? And people feel trusted, right? Because this is an emotional purchase, and people are suffering, right? So how do you gain that trust? How do you make sure that you have their back in all throughout their entire journey with you? So once that is a little bit more solidified, then of course it comes down to scale, right? And it comes down to acquisition costs, as you just mentioned. And then the question becomes, how much marketing budget do you have, and can you scale by still remaining efficient? So, and I'm sure you've had these conversations multiple times, but making sure your client acquisition cost is not going through the roof while you continue to scale is a very important conversation to have. And another important concept here is diminishing returns, right? Because sometimes you put into specific channels more advertising budget, but if you feel like you're reaching diminishing returns in a channel for whatever reason, do you have the capacity to pivot to another channel in order to still reach that scale and make sure that your CPA, your client acquisition cost, or your cost per acquisition, is staying in line within the limits that you have budgeted for. So, and that's a very interesting balancing act. And actually, it's super interesting how we've done that. I can give you some more insight there. I think the key there is absolutely channel diversification. So being in one channel on Facebook or just social media is just not enough, because you're going to reach the diminishing return concept fairly quick. So how do you make sure that you are raising awareness at the top level, right? And use some of these other channels to convert customers into long-term clients. And that's a concept that we've gotten down to a T, because we've got an amazing growth team. I can elaborate on that in a second as well if you want. But we've definitely have diversified well. Our message is clear, and we've got an audience that resonates with that message. And now we are further opening that audience to different audiences and different channels. So that's how we continue to scale. Now that's on the acquisition side, right? So making sure that CPAs are not getting out of control, making sure that you're on enough channels, and making sure that you're not reaching diminishing returns, because otherwise you can't spend the budget effectively enough, and then you're starting to burn way faster than you want. And then, of course, we all know that
bad things happen.
that's especially during epidemic, because attracting money through VC and private equity funds during a pandemic, especially when you don't show efficient growth, is just incredibly hard. But we've handled that incredibly well. Actually, the whole business became way more efficient during the pandemic, and growth was actually exponential. But so that's the acquisition side of the business. Now, the majority of our business is retention, right? Because we've got a large subscription base of customers that are very healthy and happy with the product. So that means that we are doubling down on how do we add value throughout the journey of the customer. Because if you increase your LTV by customer, it means that you can actually spend more on the client acquisition cost, and that again represents further scale, right? But just also from a not just a business point, but a perspective, but more from the human element here. And this is again why we do business, going back to our mission, which is adding value to people's lives. It's such an important success metric, right? How long people are sticking with your service or with your product. And so retention has always been a very, very important KPI for us, not just from a business perspective, but just as an overall success metric. And we've made a lot of progress there. So we continue to listen to our customers and making sure that we support them the best way we can once they are subscribers. So we've got services and tools and hair mineral analysis tests that we can do, and we've got full-time doctors on staff that can speak with our customers in order to support them.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on so many things there. It's such an interesting dance, just on the acquisition side, between building the content engine through blog, podcast, newsletters, organic social, and then allocating budget to the paid side and trying to marry those and flexing the budget up and down depending on how people are resonating. That alone is such an interesting challenge, especially with D2C. And then when you pair on the retention side and doubling down there as well, it's definitely complex. But thank you for breaking it down that way. I think that's helpful for aspiring founders to hear it. One question I wanted to ask before I shift to more of the personal questions is around the competitive landscape. So you mentioned it a couple of times before. I think when people think about this problem, identify they have this problem at a surface level, there's so many avenues they can go, not in the hair wellness space as you've tried to build, but going to the dermatologist, trying to take those raw vitamins, trying to change their diet, things like that. How do you see that landscape shifting over time? Do you think the veil is going to get taken off and these things like Propecia and things that aren't working are just going to, slowly diminish in terms of adoption and more will channel towards Nutrafol? Or how do you see the industry shaking out?
Great question. I think that there's always going to be room and space for all these solutions, right? But I think it's time for real innovation, and we have been leading that conversation because as I mentioned, it's just incredible that since 1988, there's no real solution that was even FDA approved that has been helping people. It's crazy to think that you're going to a dermatologist and if you suffer from stress-related hair loss or even telogen effluvium, which is alopecia related, that they give you cortisone shots right in your scalp. So it's like it's that which is just putting a band-aid right on a
On the
problem.
core
There's some
problem. Yeah.
underlying concerns here, and I think that there's going to be there's all these products like there's people that want immediate results. If you want immediate results, then your best bet right now is seriously to do either a surgery, right, transplant surgery, and even that is going to take months, right? Or you can use some of these pharmaceuticals that there's a massive risk for side effects, and there's a space for that, right? There's some people who like to choose that route, and that's okay. We just believe that naturals are becoming more effective and more precise in the way they can target. And even pharmaceuticals are derived from naturals, right? So it's super interesting to see that the future, in my opinion, when it comes everything related to hair health, is will be holistic, right? Addressing these multiple factors. We are at the forefront of that. So we continue to do a lot of research. We've got an amazing research and development team. We've partnered up with a variety of universities to continue to do research in this space and see how we can optimize, right? Optimize our products, create different solutions to further help this audience, patients and customers. But to go back to the original of your question, it's like there needs to be more innovation, and everybody knows that this is a problem, and there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that, of course, invest millions and even billions of dollars in research when it comes to this. But everybody's trying to figure out this magic pill, right?
Yeah.
Or
This
this
quick
this
fix
a
solution.
quick fix, and it's like it's highly, highly, highly complex. When you read our scientific white papers and you really dive into the literature, it's like it is highly complex. There's no such thing as a magic pill. These are your follicles are mini organs, right? They all cycle differently. They're all incredibly, incredibly fragile and sensitive, depending on all these triggers within the body. So I think the future of hair will become wellness, and is that whole body approach. I don't believe in a topical solution that is just going to put a band-aid on something that is cost eternity. So hopefully we will continue to raise awareness, and even through these type of conversations, it's like the way you feel, your health in general plays such a huge role when it comes to hair, right? And it all comes down to, I know this sounds a little bit like a cliche, but your outer beauty is a reflection of your inner wellness, right? And that's the same with skin, that's the same with hair. And applying that approach, using that approach, I think, even with new ingredients and new innovation in that direction, I think is going to show tremendous success moving forward.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's an exciting time for the space, and I think holistic wellness in general. I think a lot of attention has been cast, especially in the last 2 years, across a lot of these different disciplines. So it's exciting to talk about it. Shifting to some of these other questions, more kind of personally, your perspective on some things around running a startup and growing a startup. So the first one is around hiring. I ask this question to everybody, and I'm really curious to get your take. I think hiring superstars and finding them and bringing them on your team and providing an environment for them to flourish is the number one thing you can do to drive success. So, I've echoed that to a lot of founders, and they've seemed to agree. For you, what have proven to be the consistent qualities across the superstar people that you found that now work at Nutrafol?
That's an interesting question. I think being able to hire the right talent is it's indeed a key thing, right? If you're not able to attract the right talent to accelerate your business, it's just very, very hard to grow. You can have all the funding you have, but if you don't have rock stars on board that can take the company to the next level, you're going to have a problem. So I always try to hire people that are smarter than I am in many ways. I don't feel threatened by that at all. I know what I'm really good at, and I try to surround myself by people that are very good in things that either I cannot do or do not want to do, right? And what I've seen is I always tend to look at just their drive behind them applying for this specific position within the company. Right? What's their why? Why do they want to be a part of Nutrafol? That to me is a very important question because it's not an easy journey, right? It's we technically still consider it a startup. At least that's how we want to see ourselves because we want to remain agile, right? And we want to still be excited about all these amazing initiatives and pivot and be disruptive in many ways. So really attracting people that truly want to help people, that are truly in this not just for themselves but also to just make impact, right? In this world is something that I'm always looking for. I'm less looking for just the typical credentials. I like backgrounds that are not conventional, right? I like to see candidates that have that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because if you typically the entrepreneurial spirit comes with ownership, right? And I think a key part of being successful, also on an individual level, is just ownership, right? And being very, very dedicated and diligent about specific things that you do within an organization, and then making sure it's done correctly. So that piece of ownership is crucial as well.
I totally agree with all those things, and they're very aligned with what several of the founders have said on the show. A question around funding. So you mentioned raising money. I'm sure you've gone through several rounds. A lot of the people listening to this are either aspiring entrepreneurs or actually entrepreneurs themselves now, and I find it very helpful when founders can come on the show and share any tactical advice, lessons learned, words of wisdom that they picked up from the fundraising process, either from investor pitches that have gone well or poorly. Do you have any wisdom to shed on that topic?
Sure. Yeah, we had multiple rounds indeed. It's important to align yourself with the right investors because you want it to be a real partnership. Um, I think uh, what's crucial is that you're always coming from a position of strength, right? You cannot raise money successfully if you don't have something exciting to offer, right? You can't successfully raise money if there's no hope or any upward momentum, right? It just makes things way, way harder. So you want to approach investors when there's excitement around anything that you do. And by the way, that can even be an amazing idea, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be. You don't necessarily need proof of concept. Like for us, it was a little different because in the beginning, frankly, people were thinking, "Who are you guys?" Right? Thinking to solve this problem seriously, right? So we were challenged a lot. So we decided to use all our personal money, uh, all bets in, right?
All the
Uh,
modeling gigs.
everything, you know, like seriously everything. We lived on rice and beans for about a year, which is great to look back at. It's like, and we decided to actually have ready product with some results before we even approach investors. And so it was fundamentally was really built in a very different way. Also, the business was not built as, oh, let's just make a lot of money around the products that we offer. It was about let's figure out a solution to a problem that we have, help ourselves, and maybe we can help others as well. like I had a successful career, my business partner had a successful career, so we were never intended to build a massive business around this and attract funding and approach investors. So our goal was really to have a product out there that we believe in, and that allowed us to eventually raise some money and create the excitement that I just talked about, around the funding, right? So yeah, I think that's key. You cannot. It's just incredibly hard, especially in this environment and with the distress that we're all going through with the pandemic. It's just really hard to, if you don't have something that's super exciting. Let's always understand timing and approach investors the right time, and really working on your pitch, to make sure that that's nailed down, and then hopefully the potential will be addressed as well, right? So there's excitement. I always try to put myself in the investor's shoes, right? What if I'm on the other side? Am I going to get excited about this? Is there potential here? Do I believe in the founders, right? What they're saying now to me, is that something that I can trust them with? So I know that this is pretty broad, but yeah, excitement around your whatever you offer. Again, the why. Why do you do this, right? Because everybody can do things, but I think it's also crucial that the investor will see that the person behind this product or service is so incredibly passionate, right, and obsessed to make this successful, because it's not an easy journey. And the investors need to know and need to see that you're not going to give up, right? Because that's 95 of the businesses just fail, right? And that requires you to have specific skills. So the drive and the why has to be right. Otherwise, it's just too easy to eventually just give up and just choose a different route.
Yeah. So I want to shift to a segment that we're calling the wellness corner, which it builds really well on what we've talked about already. I think about wellness and health as a stack. So I think, and a lot of people that are forward thinkers, innovators in the space do as well, right? The holistic approach to nutrition, sleep, meditation, fitness, everything stacked on top of each other does create compounding effects. So what I like to do is I'll take you through just a couple of aspects of kind of the wellness stack, and I'd love you to share kind of how you think about it, what you do on a daily basis, if there are any brands or products that you use that you kind of couldn't live without.
Absolutely.
Cool. So the first one is morning routine. Do you have a morning routine? How do you like to start the day? Any specific habits that you keep daily?
Oh yes, absolutely. You need routines. Without routines, my mind is pretty structured. If I don't have a routine, there's I get disrupted. So yeah, definitely early. I'm an early bird. So waking up around 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 the latest, and either workout, keep everything flowing, or meditation. So I either go for a run, either work out, or meditate. So starting the day with something just to level set and give you that a level of awareness, right, and appreciation of life. So that has to be a part of my morning routine. Otherwise, frankly, my days are just not as balanced as they should be. So really laying that foundation, combined with drinking a lot of water. I know it sounds simple, but during the night, during your sleep, there's a lot of processes that take place. So really flushing the body with water the morning you wake up, either with lemon water, is crucial for me. It also sets the right foundation. And then once that is done, I'm diving into work. I want to be ahead of everyone. Um, and then, of course, depending on how the day progresses, I still try to incorporate a lot of wellness breaks. We actually have in the company now wellness breaks identified, that nobody's meeting, nobody's actually talking. So on a daily basis, everybody has wellness breaks to make sure that we're getting the time rest and connect with ourselves or with people around us.
That's awesome. The next one's kind of nutrition, eating, fasting. Do you do intermittent fasting? And if not, no worries. But for nutrition on the eating side, do you have specific meals that you like to go to? Do you keep a certain diet?
Yeah, no, going back to inner wellness, right? You are what you eat. So, yeah, essential to make sure that you eat healthy. I try to be as healthy as possible. I love salads. Sounds a little boring, but
That's a good habit
you
to
know,
have, though.
look, I'm Greek, so I love olive oil, uh, and yeah, sometimes it's olive oil soup with a little bit of salad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely believe in good food in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. I try to not eat late, and goes back to intermittent fasting here. I really try not to eat later than 6, 7 o'clock. So then, at least in the morning, I can do my routine. I can drink water or have a little bit of coffee, and then at least I have the 16 hour or 14 hour of fasting, which actually is helping me. It's something that I've applied recently, but I actually feel quite good about it. So yeah, definitely eating, trying to stay away from carbs, lots of olive oil, my vitamins and nutrients and products, of course, that we make, and then really sticking to just healthy foods, smoothies. Love them as well, and sometimes even skipping a dinner, just flushing your body with just a smoothie, just to clean things up is working out quite nicely for me.
Yeah. And how about sleep? So you've already mentioned a couple of times how important sleep is. Do you have a kind of set time you try to be in bed by? Do you use any particular products to like get yourself ready for sleep?
Yeah, so two things. I'm very big on sleep. I think it's a fascinating topic, and I think it's the key to longevity. I truly believe that. So I bought some of these rings that that can measure my sleeping patterns.
Oh, the Aura rings.
Yes, I got the Aura ring. I have to reorder it because I can't find it anymore. But it's that was helpful, and just to at least understand, and get a little bit of a deep dive when it comes to the sleeping patterns and deep sleep and REM sleep, etc. So blocking out the blue light. I've got these blue light glasses that I tend to use after 6, so at least blocking out the blue light, not looking at my phone. And I'm very, very fortunate. I know that's going to sound a little obnoxious, but that I have a jacuzzi here, and I can use before I go to bed. And what it actually does, it just heats the body up, right? And I listen to podcasts or I educate myself a little bit. I really try to wind down, um, and then um, and then that allows me to go to bed around 11, and with a bit of a less of a racing mind,
Yeah.
because the moment your mind is racing, that's
Yeah, you're
exactly
done.
when you cannot sleep, and that's what disrupts my entire next day. And I still don't have it down to a science. I'm honest. It's like we all live in a stressful world, and with everything that's going on, it's like sleep is disrupted. But at least I can get my solid 7 hours, because that's essential for me.
Totally. And then the last one in this is your content diet. So, micro content from like newsletters and podcasts that you listen to more on a daily basis, weekly basis, and then any books that you've read more long term that have really changed your outlook on anything. What would you share there?
Yeah, so I try to educate myself through that online content. The podcast is a big one. Um, thank God we can have these type of conversations this
Yeah.
way, right? And they're a little bit more long form, super educational. Just the big ones, from some of the smaller ones, from Joe Rogan till some other, sometimes even more controversial speakers, such as Dr. Peterson. Not agree with everything that he's saying, but it's super interesting to just hear these different point of views, right? So you can form your own opinion. um, because I'm not having a television. I'm not watching any television. I think it's a huge distraction. So I'm not watching the news. I'm just scanning through some news apps just to get some of the top items, and that's enough for me. And then I'm diving into podcasts, random podcasts, to just educate myself. And then one of the books that actually has changed my life. So there's two of them. One of them is Essentialism, from Greg, what's his name, McCann, which is all about focus, right? And the essence of being an essentialist and being the power of saying no. That's incredibly beneficial to me. That book, and the other book called From Good to Great. I'm sure you've read it. Yeah, very inspiring. So these are definitely two that I would definitely recommend to people that are starting a business and people that want to change the world for the better.
Awesome. Cool. Two more questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here. The first one is, and we ask these to every guest, so I'm pumped to get your take on these. The first one is the startup manifesto. So a lot of this has been littered throughout your answers throughout the show and the conversation. But if you had to write a startup manifesto with five of the most important key lessons or pitfalls to avoid when starting out, what would they be?
Great question. So I think so. I'm going to frame my answers based on the following, because I think entrepreneurship in general it's really a way of living. In my opinion, it's a mindset that requires a tremendous amount of resilience. Um, because I think that's really required if you want to build a very successful business. So one of the things that are top of mind for me is being absolutely obsessed with what you do. Not just love what you do. Right? Love what you do can sometimes also sound like a cliche, but how deeply are you invested? What are your reasons behind all of this? So that's really top of mind for me, because if that's not solid enough, um, the chances that you are going to give up are just too big. So that's one. The second is willingness to sacrifice, because again, it and I know this sounds maybe a little bit negative, but it isn't. It's actually I see this as very inspiring, because I've had many conversations with great entrepreneurs and leaders that have really changed this world. And sacrifice always comes up, right? It's like how how much are you willing to sacrifice, right, to make a difference? And I haven't seen my family for a long time, right? It's like sometimes it jeopardizes relationships. It's not easy, right? And it's just a part of life. And unfortunately, it's hard sometimes to just do everything, right? I'm having 16-hour days at the moment, right? To work days to get things in an even better place. So your willingness to sacrifice, I think having peace with that, I think is important. You know, the third one is, again, it's a mindset, which is being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Man, the amount of times that I was uncomfortable and insecure and um, just uh, just I was just seeing it as such a mountain in front of me. But then the ability to push yourself and break through, right? At the other side of that fear is this moment of bliss, is that moment of of true growth, which is so celebrational, right? If you're able to do that, but pushing yourself and seeing and embracing these type of obstacles as and moments of comfort, embracing them and turning them into growth opportunities is something that has tremendously helped me in life. And then the fourth one is focus. Actually, what I just mentioned, not just professionally but personally, right? So focus on a personal level, what's important, right? And then as we just talked about, from a professional level as well, which is, are you gonna do 100 things a little bit, or are you just gonna focus on 5 things and actually do them well, right? That entire concept. And then the fifth one, which is, as we just talked about, incredibly foundational, is just health. Your health, it's like, how can you change the world? How can you add value to people's lives if you don't feel well yourself, right? It's just, how do you remain sharp? How do you maintain that edge, right? Because you just need it to also outlast the competition, right? And continue to add value. So I think these 5 points are maybe a little bit more broad, but I think it's that mindset and that way of living that I think is required as an entrepreneur to truly have a very successful business. And with a very successful business, I don't mean having a profitable business or building a multi-million dollar business. I'm talking about way larger than that. Right? It's like, how do you impact and add value to millions of people out there? So I'm talking about big scale here, and that's just, in order to do that, it just requires a lot, and it's not easy. We're still trying to do it every day. We still experience a lot of struggles and obstacles, but we're not going to stop because we feel incredibly grateful, and we can just see the effects that it has on people, and the value, meaning taking some of these stressors away from people. Right? And I talk about this a lot. It's like, you're a little bit concerned about your hair. Sure, that doesn't maybe sound big, but imagine the drainage of energy, right, on a daily basis when you have that concern. If you're a little bit insecure about yourself, or you don't present yourself well because you're thinking about your hair. I've been there, especially for women, right? It's like, there's so much taboo around it. I know women that are not walking on the street because they're afraid the way the wind is going to blow their hair is going to reveal a bald spot, right? It's incredibly sad. So how do we help these women? How do we take some of these stresses away from them by them taking control of the situation? It's like, when you see the impact that you're making on people's lives, not just to themselves, because the moment they're going to feel better about themselves, right? It's like, then everything around them is being impacted. So there's this ripple effect, right? So when you experience that on a daily basis, that's what truly keeps us going.
Yeah, it's amazing. The health piece too, your last one, it's so underrated. I feel like 10 years ago, the entrepreneurship, the celebritized like stigma was like, burn the candle at both ends, get no sleep, don't take care of yourself, and just like, that's just not the way that you're most productive and effective. So I totally agree with that.
I'm so happy that you're saying that and you're underlying that, because you're absolutely right. And maybe, for good or for bad, this whole pandemic has changed a little bit also the way we think about wellness and health, right? And we got a real reality check. So hopefully we can learn a little bit as well, and change the way we view health and wellness moving forward. Because if you don't have that underlying foundation, it's just way too fragile.
Yeah,
right?
I'm hoping so.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So the second kind of question that we ask everyone, I'm pumped to get your take on this one as well. So this has been a great way for the show to grow, and we have kind of everyone give a nomination. So it's your turn to nominate another founder that's either a friend, colleague, or mentor of yours that you would like to see on the show in the future.
Yeah, there's one person that comes to mind. His name is Aswan Khan. He's he's a very special man. He's an entrepreneur. Is very successful. Has started multiple businesses. Has a wealth of information. He's been an advisor to me. Continues to advise me. And he's an amazing friend too.
Awesome.
So
Sounds like the perfect combination.
yeah, no, he's a very interesting guy, and has great perspective, and he's making a great impact also in the wellness space. Has a very different background, so that's why I think it's interesting to hear these different perspectives. But yeah, he's also on track to continue to make amazing difference.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to get him on. It sounds like a great person to talk to.
Yeah, he's great.
So before I let you go, I just want to acknowledge you for a second. This is something I do with all my guests. Through the conversation, I'm obviously hosting, but I'm also listening and love these conversations. And with you, I think your commitment to the craft and your commitment to actually doubling, tripling down into the space and becoming an expert before you grew a business, before you built a product, that's super inspiring to me. I think if people take nothing else away from this conversation, that ethos and mentality to do that and really build the foundation and knowledge base, you know what you're talking about. You've led teams that have written white papers and you're the forefront thinker on the space. I think that's really powerful and inspiring. So I just want to thank you again for coming on, and I'll continue to be a consumer and a huge advocate of Nutrafol in the future. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and truly appreciate the compliment. I'm always happy to support in any way possible.
Of course.
So let us know.
Yeah, we'll do. Do you want to just plug the website and the social media for the company as well as yourself if people want to follow you?
Sure. So our website is Nutrafol.com, Nutrafol.com. That's where you can find the products, or on Amazon.com as well, or you can visit some of your physician, dermatologist, or plastic surgeon in your neighborhood, because there's a big chance that they're going to be selling Nutrafol as well. So that's where our products are available. And again, happy to support in any way possible. We have amazing doctors and staff that you can always talk to, even when you don't buy the products. We've got an amazing customer service in place as well. So whatever we can do to empower people to make healthier and better decisions for themselves, we're here to support.
Awesome. Giorgos Tsetis, founder of Nutrafol, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to that episode with Giorgos Tsetis of Nutrafol. We've got exciting things in the works here at The Founder. If you're loving the show and want to support, there's a couple quick, completely free things you could do that would really help us out. 1, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts. If you go on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star rating and a couple sentence positive review on why the show inspired you. These ratings and reviews are super important, and they signal to Apple that they should put our show in front of other people that might like it. 2, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Founder Podcast. Each week we put out teasers, audio clips, and important quotes from the episode. And lastly, check out our website as a mission control for the show. Go to thefounderpod.com. We have a page on there called Special Offers, where we link up all the discount codes from our founders' companies, as well as the books and resources that have been recommended. I hope you enjoyed that episode and are looking forward to the next one. Until then, I'm Kallaway, and this is The Founder.